got up before dawn just to bring you
Top of the morning from beautiful downtown Baltimore.
Hi, the top of the morning.
Top of the morning to all of you.
Hi, top of the morning.
Welcome, I'm Rebecca Hoffberger, and it's my delight today to have my very first guest who's total of magic, and that is John Carrington, a Maryland treasure. Don't touch that dial.
So be my guest, you've got nothing to lose. Won't you let me take you on a sea cruise? Ooh-wee, baby.
The Prince Charming is our third vessel in our fleet of 3 boats. He is our smallest vessel and holds comfortably between 75 and 125 guests. The boat is perfectly suited for field trips, small group events, weddings, corporate charters, and other events of that size. Let's step aboard. You'll see that the Prince boasts a beautiful wooden bar that wraps around the first deck. It is a centerpiece of this space. Also, is a seating area for 40 guests. This is where half of your guests will be able to sit during your cruise. The stern of the Prince Charming can accommodate an additional 40 to 50 guests. This is a beautiful place to enjoy your dinner and just look out the windows and watch the world go by. The top deck of the Prince Charming is everyone's favorite. The open air view is magnificent and the cool breeze is something everyone looks forward to. This is the perfect space for a wedding ceremony, a video presentation, speaker, or the dance floor for the rest of your evening. The Prince Charming hosts 4 daily 1-hour cruise a day during our season, April through October. The boat is perfect for student groups, senior groups, and tourists from all over the world. If you're a group between 65 and 125, the Prince Charming is really the ideal place for you.
So be my guest, you've got nothing to lose. Won't you let me take you on a sea?
Today, I'm particularly excited about our next guest, John Carrington, a true Maryland treasure. How many people do you know can take math and make it magic for children? He's done it.
Well, I'm a victim of math. I mean, a victim of math instruction that turned me off. But I did fall in love with public speaking and working with people. And of course, I eventually got into performing magic tricks and puppetry and juggling. And I realized I had a captive audience. A captive audience, boy, a magician has a captive audience. With an ego like mine, oh, excuse me, well, anyway, I figured, well, if you got their attention, you might as well leave them with something worthwhile. And I got to thinking about my hatred of math and my difficulty in making sure that I appreciated math. And I realized what the problem was my attitude. I had learned a negative attitude about math. And I figured, well, if I had a positive attitude, what would happen? Mm-hmm. So my second year of graduate school, I passed the math course because I changed my attitude. I loved math. I started playing games with my pocket calculator and making word puzzles happen. And next thing you know, I was excited about math and I was learning it at a rate that I hadn't learned it in my entire life. And of course, math is something that we all need. And there's a funny thing about math. You have to learn to read, then you learn math. You don't necessarily have to learn math in order to learn how to read. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about attitudes that prevent children from learning. Sometimes it can come from a teacher who doesn't really put the energy in or put in the love and the caring that's necessary to excite a child about reading or math. Or it could come from an attitude at home where the parents don't care. Hey, did you do your homework? Oh, Mommy, I'll get to it, okay. No. The attitude has to be positive. It was Louis Mercier who said, that which we learn with love, we never forget. That which we learn with love, we never forget. So I thought, well, one thing I can do as a legacy is write a book that would excite children about math. Well, I can't teach the subject, but I can sure influence their attitude towards it. There's something called math sense. Math sense is when cavemen would go out into the woods and they would see one tagger. They would run back and say, there's one tagger there. Why? If there's one tagger, you know which way to run. If there were two taggers, the caveman had to communicate that. Why? Because there are now two ways to escape from the tagger. There are three taggers, well, it gets a little touchy. The real smart caveman realizes that there's only one way to escape. If there are three taggers. And then after three taggers, you don't have a problem. You're dead. Why? Because there are many taggers. So math in prehistoric times was probably 1, 2, 3, and a whole lot of them. A whole lot of them meant that you had a problem. Well, children learn what they have to learn through survival. And so they'll learn 1, 2, 3. But what excites them about the higher learning in math? Well, it's the attitude and the environment that makes them excited about learning more than just 1, 2, 3. Well, I figured I'd put together a book of magic tricks, puzzles, and games that focus on math. Why? To get children positively excited about learning about numbers and how they work. Multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. Those are basic functions that you have to do in math. But I wrote the book in simple terms. I didn't write long, drawn-out sentences. I used simple words, simple phrases to tell the children what keys to press on a very inexpensive 8-digit pocket calculator. Push those digits, and all of a sudden, you look at the screen and you spelled the word loose. You press, oh, my calculator now says hello. Well, how do you do that? Well, you punch in certain numbers and you get a certain result, and it's like magic. All of a sudden, the child is understanding that multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition are fun.
You were way fun too.
I try to be.
I remember that when calculators were out in my day, we used to like the bad boys would spell out bad words with it.
Well, that can be done too. I can teach you that. But you don't want to learn that on this show.
No, but you know what? It taught kids that, and for example, in Hebrew, every letter is actually also a number. Did you know that? And like the equivalent of A would be 1, Aleph is 1, and B would be 2, big, and so on. But I remember when we would play with the little calculators, we would joke amongst ourselves, and I was so delighted to see that you have really packaged that and in a proper way, and will be inspiring so many more. But you're all about magic. You're not just the one-trick pony by any means.
No. In fact, I want to thank you for carrying a copy of the book, Calculator Magic Made Easy, at your bookstore there at the American Visionary Art Museum. You have several copies, I think, on hand at the bookstore. So if anybody wanted to get a hold of the book, contact the bookstore.
The gift shop.
Gift shop.
The best gift shop in America, by the way.
At the American Visionary, and I'm sure that people will want to contact the bookstore, the gift shop at the American Visionary Art Museum, and well, you're the best person to share that information.
Thank you. Well, it's we're open every day but Monday, and we've received not gifts, but reviews that the gift shop is the best gift shop of any museum in the country. And I'm so glad it's made even better by your books.
Oh, thank you.
I want to ask you another question, because I know that you're a great illusionist.
Yes, I have been hallucinating for a long time now.
You're a great musician, a magician.
Yes, 35 years.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You told me you were 32. The man is lying.
You're so kind.
But with that, have you ever had any real experience of magic?
Yes. See, I perform tricks. I use springs, batteries, wires, strings, batteries, wires. I do things that are very, if you think about it, very mechanical. Very mechanical. Very mechanical. Very mechanical. And God performs miracles. See, I only do tricks. God performs miracles. And whenever I perform a show, I prefer that people remember the message and not the magic. because after all, only God performs miracles. But when I was a young married fella, in fact, I'm still married, but I was younger, I was in an automobile accident. My wife was in the car with me, and we totaled the car on the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, not too far from, it was called Friendship Airport at the time, but it's now BWI Airport. And the car was totaled. I mean, it flipped over, skidded on its roof, and it stopped. I got out of the car, my wife got out of the car, no scratches, no injuries. And somebody pulled up behind the car, and they walked over to us and they said, "Are the people in there still alive?" I looked inside the check, and I realized I was still alive. So there must have been a purpose for me surviving that accident. Must have been a purpose for my wife surviving that accident. And I do believe that purpose has to do with my ability to do public speaking, to entertain people, and also deliver a message that's worthwhile. And sometimes delivering a message about the importance of reading, or mathematics, or being nice. It's nice to be nice is far more important and more relevant to what our people need and what our community needs in this day and age.
You know, Vincent van Gogh said something like, the more I think, the more I feel that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people. And you're a very creative person, but I always admired how much you combine that with your loving nature. Now, one thing that really amazed me, because you share it with Kwesi Mfume, you grew up in Baltimore City, in the Cherry Hill area, but you picked, you know, raspberries in the woods.
Oh,
you
yeah.
crabbed in the waters of the bay, and you're not radioactive.
No, I'm not.
So that's a good thing. Speak a little bit about what it was like to be a child of the city, but to have all the pleasures and comforts of nature and that intimacy with nature.
Country living. See, I lived in the public housing project called Cherry Hill. Cherry Hill is positioned in a very curious place. The southern end of the city. So that meant that we didn't have the row house arrangement of everybody else. It also meant that we were near the Patapsco River, which meant that there was opportunity for fishing and crabbing. It also meant that we were near the wooded sections of the city. That meant we had a chance to see rabbits, raccoons, possums. There were even rumors when I was growing up that there were deer in the woods. And there are still deer who cross over the city line into the city. And of course, Cherry Hill was one of those places where you could have that. The geese would fly over in the fall and actually land near Cherry Hill on the Patapsco River. We also had the wonderful ability to go out into the woods and gather crab apples, blackberries, raspberries. It was like having urban living in a rural setting. And there were actually opportunities for us to play football because there was lots of open space. We weren't just confined to basketball in Cherry Hill. We had the opportunity to play football. There was a swimming pool, an outdoor swimming pool. Now there's an indoor swimming pool, which is really a blessing. So Cherry Hill was just a wonderful place to grow up, and people were community.
What was the first magician you ever remember seeing?
I remember seeing a fellow on TV named Mark Wilson. Mark Wilson had a program called The Magic Circus, and he had a clown, and his wife, Nana, I believe, was his assistant, and Mark Wilson would do all kinds of amazing, fantastic things. And I said, I want to learn how to do that, especially the trick where he made money appear.
How old were you?
Well, I still haven't made any money appear yet, but I was about maybe 6 years old, maybe 7 years old when I saw that. And that got me excited about reading. And I read joke books and clown books. And back in those days, it was hard to get a hold of really good magic books because many times when we were in the library, somebody either borrowed them and didn't return them, or they borrowed them and tore out the pages that were of interest to them. So it was very difficult to get good quality magic books. So it took a while for me to eventually get around to purchasing books that would help me to learn how to be a good magician. See, there's what you call just doing tricks, and there's what you call entertainment. And I think I consider myself an entertainer. You might be tricked, but I hope you'll laugh and not be mad at me.
You know, John, let's go to the break, but I can tell you this. I know you've inspired a lot of young people to have more magic in their lives.
Well, thank you.
Fells Point is an area. Some call it a neighborhood. I call it a state of mind. We've got a mile of waterfront out here. Actually about a mile and a half. That is perhaps historically some of the most significant waterfront in North America in terms of the things that have been done here, the things that have been caused by the things that have been done here.
Fellows Point, I think, could very well secede from the city and be happy.
Welcome back. I want to get at what you have as a true vision for what this city needs to be.
All right. First of all, my perspective is that of a magician. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to trick you. And then I'm going to attempt to do it in an entertaining way so that I can get rehired. Sometimes our politicians lie to us, don't tell us that they're lying, and then expect us to re-elect them. At least I understand human nature. People are trickable. I am trickable. I've been tricked. And I'm sure everybody who's watching this program has been, at some point in their life, tricked. But at least a magician professes in the beginning that this is trickery. My suggestion is that
It's being honest about lying.
being honest about lying is a very awkward way to put it, but that's exactly what it is. So this city needs leaders who have truth as their first priority. That means that instead of telling me something that's going to distract me or take me out of a frame of mind to solve a problem, I want the truth. And the first step in solving any problem is to identify the problem. If our children are not learning in school, let's stop blaming the teachers. Let's stop blaming the system. There are parents at home who don't encourage their children to do the homework. There are parents who don't go to school themselves to improve their reading skills or to improve their skills in math. There are parents who have a bad attitude about school and they transfer that to their children. So when the child goes to the classroom, the teacher has the uphill battle of convincing the child that math is worthwhile, that reading is worthwhile. And when I was growing up, there were actually children who actually bragged about, I can't wait until I get to be 14 so I can legally quit school. I couldn't understand it because my parents were not giving me that message. My parents were telling me that school is your way out of poverty, school is your way to do better than we did as parents. And I took that message to heart. So my vision for this city is that we need to start dealing with some truth in our public school system. Children need math sense. You learn that at home. If mom opens 3 eggs and puts them in a pan, and the child is there, and mom counts with the child learns that 1, 2, 3 is a number, and that it's something that you need in order to cook. Parents in some of our less fortunate neighborhoods don't take time to give the children these little lessons in life that they can now translate into kindergarten, first grade, second grade learning experiences. So math sense is something that comes from home. Teachers are going to have a tough time with an 8-year-old in second grade or third grade who doesn't understand that 1, 2, 3 is something that you really need to know. And it's something that's going to help you when you go to other areas of math.
You know, you've really been a person, you said you grew up in the projects.
Yes.
And yet you went to college.
Oh, yes, yes.
You know, and so your parents must be very special. Sometimes I think there's book smart, and there's another kind of smart.
Right.
And sometimes you can have a fabulously wealthy family, and that doesn't mean that they value lifelong learning. But that's something that was, I'm sure, true for your parents, looking at you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I am really blessed. My father stayed with the family. You know, he did not leave us. He did not abandon us. My father died when he was like 29 years old. You know, and then he died of sugar diabetes. You know, he didn't take care of himself. But he was a hardworking man. Did construction work. Very hardworking. My mom, of course, was a stay-at-home mom because that was a tradition of families that came from the South. And both my parents came from the Virginia area, and they moved up to Baltimore to make a better life for us. My father worked construction work. He always had rough labor jobs. He only had a 3rd grade education. My mom went to the 8th grade, but their aim in life was that we had a full-time job as children. That was to get good grades in school. And there are times when my brothers got spankings for not making good grades. You know, you spank a kid now, and the kid can go get a lawyer and sue you. But the point was that they cared about education. They made it a vital link. There are 7 of us, and all of us have a college degree of some level, either junior college or advanced degrees. I have 2 daughters. One has a master's degree in special education. The other one has a Bachelor of Science degree in engineering. What was the catalyst for that happening? 2 parents who didn't have a high school diploma who cared about education. So when we start complaining about the school system and start taking salary away from teachers, we need to think, well, what is the true problem? Are we going to blame it all on the teacher, or are we going to take a hard look at what we're teaching our children in our homes? And I'm sure Bill Cosby has gotten some flack for saying things that were very direct and very true to our community. But as a magician, I'm going to tell you the truth. Or I'm going to tell you that I'm a magician and want to trick you, but I'm not going to deceive you by telling you a lie. The truth is, if you want a child who's going to do things in the art world, sculpture, painting, drawing, you need to do some of that yourself in your home. You need to take them to the American Visionary Art Museum, expose them to art and people who have creative abilities. If you want your child to sing, take them to concerts. Put them in church. Let them be on the choir. If you want your child to get a haircut, spend enough time in the barber shop and pretty soon they'll get a haircut. The point is that so many times our politicians don't tell us the truth, and they try to give us pablum or sugar coating rather than telling us the absolute truth. And then if you identify the problem in its truest terms, then you're on your way to solving the problem.
Well, beyond the politicians, what they do or don't, you know, we have power as people and as families and as parents, obviously.
Yes.
And the great thing to think about is that this is our city, this is our own now, and I'm so glad that you do your part in making it a much more magical city than it would ever be. So thank you so much for being with us today.
And thank you for inviting me.
Today we should dedicate this show to your mom and dad.
Oh, thank you. Well, Mom's still alive. Yes, she's in a nursing home, but she's, we have a theory. If you fall down, if you can look up, you can get up.
Doesn't get better than that.
Won't you let me take you on a sea cruise? Ooh-wee, baby.
Captain Larry is on the bridge, ready to begin your harbor cruise.
That's fine, sir.
Hi, sir.
Your tour begins in Baltimore's historic harbor, a short puddle jump from the Maryland Science Center. As we sail out of the harbor and throughout the cruise, you'll learn little-known facts, like did you know we're not in the Chesapeake Bay? We're sailing along the Patapsco River. From our starboard side, that's the right side for you land lovers, we'll see Federal Hill, where the federal Constitution was ratified and where modern-day revolutionaries like to party all night. The really hip museum on the right is called the American Visionary Arts Museum. To display work here, you have to have raw talent, no formal training allowed. Around the bend is the old Bethlehem Steel Shipyard, which built Liberty ships during World War II. The Harbor View condos are built where the shipyard used to be. The Baltimore Museum of Industry highlights Charm City's contributions to our nation's workforce. Check out Baltimore's first fire tug, which celebrates its 100th birthday in 2006. Got a sweet tooth? Then you'll love hearing about the Domino Sugar Plant. We'll sail beside a true war hero, the naval ship Comfort, which is just back from treating wounded soldiers in Iraq. Oh, say can you see Fort McHenry? This is the birthplace of the Star-Spangled Banner. At the Francis Scott Key Bridge, the captain turns around, but there's much more to see. The Port of Baltimore. The gold domes of St. Michael's Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Fells Point. Inner Harbor East. The Coast Guard cutter Taney, the last ship to survive Pearl Harbor. And as we're pulling into port, there's the world-famous National Aquarium.
So be my guest, you've got nothing to lose. Won't you let me take you on a sea cruise?
Welcome back. Here's the real deal of the calculator magic that you're teaching kids, both math and finger skills and thinking skills.
Also, it's public speaking, because if you think about it, any magic trick that you do requires you to stand up, speak up, and then shut up. Because after a while, we get tired of everything. And the strawberry shortcake is good, but once you've had enough strawberry shortcake, you've had enough. Magicians need to know that you do the trick and you leave them wanting more. That is always your key in a good magic presentation. So even with math magic, there's a time when you stop and leave the child excited and wanting to learn more. And that's what I try to do in this book. I kept it short, concise, and the words are easy to understand, and the buttons that you push on the calculator to make the tricks happen, it gives you that, wow, look what I just did. You want to share it with somebody.
Magician John Carrington, I wanted to ask you, have any children taken this and come back and amazed you?
Yeah, I have my granddaughters. They memorized various tricks they use with their friends in their neighborhood. And of course, I've had people call me up and order copies directly through me. Or you can go to my website, calculatormagicbook.com. Calculatormagicbook.com. That'll take you directly to a page that'll give you a sample of some of the magic tricks. Also, it'll give you a way of contacting me to get a hold of a copy of the book. This right here is a gigantic calculator that I have available, but really all you need is a $1 calculator from any dollar store, and that will do the same things that this calculator does. The idea is to get the child excited about math, get them to be an independent learner when it comes to math. That means that mom doesn't have to force them. The teacher doesn't have to tell them they want to learn and they want to have fun with math. That's what happened with me in reading. I love reading so much. I read comic books. I read, when I was 6 years old up till I was about 15, I read comic books.
Did you read Mad Magazine?
Mad Magazine, oh, one of my favorites, Alfred E. Newman. To me, he was a genius. The whole point was that I got to laugh and enjoy reading so much that I was an independent learner when it came to reading. And once I learned the basics, how to sound out words, how to use a dictionary, reading was something nobody had to tell me to do.
John, I was just wondering, you have such a beautiful mind. Is there any quote that you would like to share with everyone here today?
Okay. Les Brown, the motivational speaker, the fellow who married Gladys Knight, said that if you want anything in life, go after it as if your life depends upon it. Why? Because it does. If you want anything in life, go after it as if your life depends upon it. Why? Because it does.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all for being with me, with my dear friend, John Carrington. Thank you all for tuning in today. This is all about your vision of what can be a better place and a better life for all of us. And my great delight today was in sharing with you a man who has his own vision, John Carrington. Thank you so much.